Hello everybody, this is Primal, the Emperor of the Undivided, signing into YouTube, and today we're going to be answering the question, what the freak is the Nemesis in Dead by Daylight? But before we get into it, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you're seeing here. Really helps me out, and it lets me know that you guys want to see more of this stuff, and feel free to comment down below what you want me to do next, just a character suggestion for Dead by Daylight or any other game. Please let me know, and with that being said, let's get into the video. The lore of Nemesis is honestly very simple if you're just going over a broad overview, not getting into the Umbrella Corporation or anything like that, just focusing on Nemesis. The Umbrella Corporation created Nemesis with one goal and one goal in mind, and that is to eliminate STAR's members. STAR's members in Resident Evil are the protagonists. They are a special forces organization thingamabobber. Again, not going to get too nitty-gritty into it, just giving a big overview. They were the protagonist fighting against the Umbrella Corporation and all of the horrific monstrosities and undead that the Umbrella Corporation was making. And the Umbrella Corporation, realizing that a horde of zombies and other monstrosity that they were making just wasn't enough to reliably kill STAR's members, they decided, you know what? I got an idea. What if we make something that's only purpose in life is to see if we can do it and to create something that is only designed to kill STAR's members? That's it. Now, to create something that could kill STAR's members, they knew that they couldn't just grab a zombie PNG and stretch it out and make a big hulking monstrosity. They already kind of tried that and threw a bunch of other big hulking monstrosities at STAR's members, and it didn't kill them. In particular, characters like Jill Valentine were giving Umbrella Corporation a real fucking headache because they just couldn't kill her, or even reliably hurt her for that matter. And so, they decided we need to make this big hulking monstrosity, but there needs to be a twist to it. We need to make it be able to think. It needs to have some form of self-awareness and some form of intelligence. Not enough to where it's going to question our orders or what the heck its point of existence is. No. But just enough to where it's going to be able to know exactly what its purpose is and come up with ways of actually being able to fulfill that purpose, whether through the use of traps, tools, or other things that a general zombie just isn't gonna be able to cut it. And to put it bluntly, if you want to explain what Nemesis is in a few short words, he is a sentient bulldozer with cruise missile controls. He has one goal and one goal only, and he will do just about fucking anything to do it. And he is very effective in that, and in-game this is represented very well with his perks. His perks like Lethal Pursuer perfectly show this idea of your job is one thing and one thing alone, and that is to eliminate people. And if we're going in-game, like for the, not in-game Dead by Daylight, but to Resident Evil 3, yeah, that's kind of what he did. He was always on Jill Valentine's ass the entire game, at least more or less. He obviously wasn't present throughout the entire game, but the threat of him looming is present for pretty much the entire thing, and he's never too far away. He often shows up in a big explosion, beats the shit out of people, and then you just barely escape him. I almost said he dips. No, we dip. The player just tries to run the fuck away. And overall, I think it's translated very well in-game. He is the tallest killer in the game. Not just the tallest, the biggest killer in the game, barring specific outfits like True Form Dracula, who I do think is a bit taller. But just in terms of base skins and cosmetics, Nemesis is easily the tallest. And honestly, his design perfectly matches this. He is a big, broad motherfucker with this mishmash of what looks like fucking trash can stuff, but, you know, with trash can bags and whatnot all over him, but with staples and shit. And overall, yeah, it looks like Nemesis from the Resident Evil 3 remake, and they do a very good job of it. He is very fucking loud. He has some of the loudest footsteps of any killer in the game, which is why he can be such a pain in the ass to play against competent survivors, because they'll just infinitely loop you because they can hear where you are at all times. Whether they have Oblivious or you have Undetectable or not, they can still hear your fat ass stomping all over the goddamn place. But at the same time, he plays very, very well. This unstoppable juggernaut is a bit hard to translate into a sorry, This unstoppable juggernaut is a bit hard to translate into a Dead by Daylight game because all the killers have to have some consistent play around, which is you can just run in circles and it's hard and it can be rather frustrating for the killer to catch you. You have to be able to stun them with pallets and blind them with flashlights, and generally things like decisive strike and head on have to work on all killers. So how they make the Nemesis actually feel unstoppable in this game is actually very, I think they do it very well. It's not that he's immune to pallet stuns or anything like that, God no, but he can just destroy pallets. He is the best at destroying pallets in the entire game with his special ability, the tentacle strike, which we'll get into later. And also, again, it's really hard for me to explain it other than just he is a big motherfucker, and they make a very good job of him feeling big, at least to the survivors, because of how loud he is and the impacts that he makes. Admittedly, when you're actually playing him, there's some moments where I kind of wish his animations had a bit more thump to them. Like, don't get me wrong, when he clasps his hands together and brings them down in a big overarching smash animation for, like, his regular pallet break, it's really cool that he's just using his hands, or his basic attack animation is just him punching you. But it just lacks that kind of thump every once in a while. Like, I was playing Springtrap against some of my friends just to kind of show the killer off because they hadn't played Dead by Daylight before. And when you throw that axe, and if you miss, it really freaking smacks into the ground with a really hard thump. And it made me realize that Nemesis doesn't really have that per se. He still feels big, but I'd love if they went back and looked at him and made these animations have a bit more pop to them, a bit more thump. Like, make this pallet break animation have a really big boom to it. I understand that, like, for balancing purposes, it's important that pallet breaks can't be heard throughout the entire goddamn map, but, like, I would love if, like, the punch and the double-handed smackdown onto pallets had just a little bit more thump to them. Even when, like, looking at his Mori animation, when he does the big freaking head smash onto somebody, there doesn't feel like there's a ton of thump behind it. Or maybe it's just a me thing, or maybe there's just not enough of it, but I keep thinking back to, like, when Springtrap throws his axe and it embeds in the ground with a big with what almost feels like an explosion. I would love if it had a bit more thump to Nemesis, but again, I still think he was translated very well from Resident Evil 3 to Dead by Daylight, especially considering you still have to have a killer that is, like, that's supposed to feel unstoppable while still getting stunned with pallets and flashlights and head-on decisive strikes, so on and so forth. I think they did a very good job with him. I think my only critique is that he just needs some more thumps with his animation, just a bit more impact, that's all. Looking at the Nemesis's cosmetics, you have the base skin from Resident Evil 3, the remake of Resident Evil 3, sorry. The Nemesis Origin skin, this is from Resident Evil 3, not the remake, the old Resident Evil 3. And then Nemesis Blight, which is just the classic Blight skin. And overall, pretty good. Do I wish there was a few more? Yes, absolutely, but at the same time, I feel like it's perfectly okay to not have a ton of skins for Nemesis. His base skin and the Nemesis Origin are probably my favorites. I'm going to give it to Nemesis, his base skin, as my personal favorite, then Nemesis Origin. But they are all good, and they all sell this big, hulking monstrosity very well, especially with the Blight skin, because it broadens his shoulders out a ton and makes him look even taller than he was before, and even bigger. But again, no bad skins here. I just wish we had more of them, but also I 100% understand that it's going to be hard to get more skins for a licensed killer. The power of the Nemesis is the T-Virus, a virus that causes extreme mutations and can be transferred to others. It also heightens the aggression and strength within the Nemesis. The first part of the T-Virus is Special Attack Tentacle Strike. Press and hold the power button to charge an attack. Once the attack is charged, you can tap the attack button to flick the tentacle out from your wrist into a straight line in front of you. It is a very thin hitbox. I feel like I'm trying to hit the survivors with the two end of a 2x4, but if the tentacle strike actually does connect, it afflicts them with the contaminated status effect and increases your mutation rate. If a survivor is already contaminated, however, the tentacle strike damages their health state and increases your mutation rate even more so than before. The contaminated effect can also be applied to survivors via the two zombies you spawn in with that are just dropped around the map. You get 2 of them. Zombies can be destroyed by a tentacle strike to increase your mutation, and survivors can destroy them with pallets. The zombies do respawn eventually, but it does take some time, so be careful with when and how you're destroying them. But, as stated before, if a zombie hits a survivor, they're inflicted with a contaminated effect, but if they're already contaminated, they get damaged as well, and they can down survivors. It happens very, very rarely, but it can happen. Through the mutation rate, your power expands as your mutation rate grows. At mutation rate 2, Tentacle Strike can destroy pallets and breakable walls, and at mutation rate 3, the Tentacle Strike's the Tentacle Strike's range and movement speed increases when fully charged. The T-Virus icon displays the current mutation rate. Now, this is the big thing that makes Nemesis the Nemesis, this mutation rate 2 and 3. At mutation rate 1, Nemesis is just straight up not very good. Yes, he has a ranged attack, but it's not very good. It's hard to hit, you're slow, you have to hit them 3 times with the tentacle to actually down them, and they can just reset themselves. But at mutation rate 2, the Tentacle Strike can destroy pallets and breakable walls. This is a really big buff for the Nemesis, because this means that as survivors are running away from you and dropping pallets, you can create big dead zones as you just completely devour any and all pallets that get dropped. Additionally, if survivors are dropping pallets to destroy zombies, you can just use your Tentacle Strike to just bop, there goes that pallet as well. But at mutation rate 3 is when Nemesis becomes a true freaking monster. Again, its range increases, your movement speed goes up a little bit when it's fully charged, and it recovers a lot quicker at tier 3 as well, and it hits like a mother clucker. That range increase is no joke, and obviously it still destroys pallets, still destroys breakable walls, still very, very strong. However, it is important to note that survivors can find vaccines in supply cases throughout the map. They're in very limited supply, but they can be used to cure the contamination. This is actually, I think, a good thing for Nemesis, because this slows down the game even more so, because if they get contaminated, the survivors have to go decontaminate themselves, otherwise you have a huge advantage in chase because you have your ranged attack. But if the survivors use the vaccine, their location is immediately revealed via Killer Instinct. It's not as strong as a aura read, but it does give you a general location of the survivor, and then you can kind of pinpoint where they're going from there. Like, oh, this generator is next to that area, so there's a good chance they're probably over there, or they're diving into main building, so on and so forth. And going back to that slowdown thing, I think this is why Nemesis is such a strong killer, especially for like newer players, is because it gives you essentially slowdown for just playing Nemesis. What slowdown is in Dead by Daylight is essentially how you can slow the game down, obviously. But how it works in Dead by Daylight, and specifically for Nemesis, is you continue to pull survivors off of generators, because they have to leave the generators to go get the vaccine to cure the contamination, and they also have to run away from zombies and make sure that they don't accidentally lead the zombies to generators, because if they do, they might just find that the zombie is just camping the generator, and so they have to waste even more time pulling the zombie away from the generator. But they have to be careful whenever they're trying to lead a zombie somewhere, because you are aware of when a zombie is chasing someone. Or kinda. When a zombie is chasing a survivor, they put their arms up and begin to slowly shamble towards them. You know, that classic zombie walk. When they're walking like this means that they're chasing a survivor, and you can use this information to find where the survivors are at. This is a huge thing for, like, just Nemesis in general. The 2 zombies are little information HUDs more than anything else, and also a bit of extra mutation rate if you want them to be so. It's just important that with the zombies you're paying attention to where they are, because if they're stacked up on top of each other, that does nothing but really hurt you. So make sure that if they are stacked on top of one another, you kill one of them so that'll respawn in a different part of the map and actually keep your map covered, because again, you need them spread out so you know where survivors are at. Again, it's not like a big aura reveal or anything like that, but it does pinpoint where a survivor may be. Starting with the perks of the Nemesis, we have Lethal Pursuer. You've been designed to track down and eliminate targets. At the start of the trial, the auras of all survivors are revealed to you for 9 seconds. Anytime a survivor's aura is shown for a period of time, its duration is increased by 2 seconds. This is obviously a nod to just why Nemesis is even a thing created by the Umbrella Corp to exterminate all STARS members. Nice, short, and simple. You have one goal and one goal alone. Kill everything that gets in your way, and especially Stars members. Lethal Pursuer is a super nice buff to pretty much any killer, especially with how sporadically survivors spawn now, because they can spawn on the exact same side of the map as the exact same side of the map as you, if you aren't. So even then, you have to traverse the entire map trying to actually find survivors, and Lethal Pursuer cuts that time down like to almost non-existence because you just know where they are at the start. But it's especially helpful with Nemesis, whose early game is not that strong, so you really need to be ramping into that stage 2 of your power, stage 3, as quick as possible, and Lethal Pursuer gives you a ton of utility to do that. Not to mention, just an additional 2 seconds on any and all aura reads is really, really strong. The second one is Hysteria. You know how to brutalize one member of a team to cause panic. Whenever a healthy survivor becomes injured by any means, all injured survivors suffer from the Oblivious status effect for 40 seconds. Hysteria can only be triggered once every 20 seconds. This is not bad at all, pretty much. Oblivious is similar to Undetectable in that it hides your terror radius, but instead it's on the specific survivors instead of on the killer itself, so it makes it a little bit worse, but also just 40 seconds of Oblivious is very, very strong. That's 40 seconds of the survivors having to see you or hear your footsteps, rather than being able to go off of your terror radius. This by no means makes Nemesis a stealth killer, but this can make him a lot harder to keep track of for the survivors. As we said before, he is a very loud killer. His footsteps are super loud and make it really hard for Nemesis to mind game out survivors, but if they aren't paying attention to that because they're listening to something else or something like a generator is muffling out the footsteps, this Oblivious can really make it to where you just get the drop on a survivor. And it's not bad. I'm not going to say it's his best. It's probably his worst perk, but it's not bad at all. He just has really good perks across the board. Then we have Eruption. The NEA parasite provides with you the intelligence, the awareness to set a trap. Yep. Nailed it. After kicking a generator, its aura is highlighted in yellow. Whenever a survivor enters the dying state, every affected generator explodes, losing 10% worth of progress and starts to regress. Any survivor repairing a generator when it explodes will scream and reveal their aura for 12 seconds. Eruption has a 30-second cooldown. This is, I would say, his second best perk, with Lethal Pursuer easily being his best. It's just a good gen regression perk. It encourages you to kick generators as you go to set the trap, and then obviously once you hit a survivor into the dying state, they explode for losing 10% worth of progress. It's not a bad slowdown perk at all. The reason why it's not seeing a lot of use is because you can only damage a generator 8 times before it's blocked from you being able to damage it at all, and Eruption actually damages it twice. It damages it once from the kick and then once from the explosion of the actual Eruption perk. So you run out of the ability to actually damage generators pretty quickly, but also it isn't bad at all. You kicking it, making it regress, and then someone comes and fixes it, and then you get a 12-second aura read on them, or 14-second if you have Lethal Pursuer. Means that even after you hit another survivor into the dying state and put them on hook, you will typically have a few seconds to figure out where another survivor is and track them and begin hunting them down. And also, you just knocked off like 10% going to probably like 15% or so until a survivor gets onto that generator and stops it from regressing. It's not bad at all. Again, it's just a real shame that it only gets used like 4 times on each generator before that generator just becomes permanently blocked from you. But again, not bad at all, and is obviously a play like that top one saying gives you the intelligence and awareness you need to set a trap. Goes into that idea of Nemesis is not just a unthinking zombie, but has a little bit more going on beneath the hood. At least a little bit. Not much, but there is a thought behind that eye. At least a little bit. There's one of them, hopefully. Looking at the add-ons that the Nemesis gets here, none of them are super stand out, but also none of them are particularly bad. Personally, I really like being able to increase my mutation rate with something like Marvin's Blood, and then, where is it, Tyrant Gore. This increases your mutation rate by 75% when you destroy a Well, no, it increases. You get 75% more mutation rate when destroying a zombie with a tentacle strike, but it also decreases the zombie's respawn time by 7.5 seconds. So yes, you're destroying your zombies, but you're also getting them back very quickly. And for Marvin's Blood, it increases mutation rate when hitting a survivor with tentacle strike by 16% if they aren't contaminated, but it increases it by 50% if they are contaminated. So you can stack tier 2 and tier 3 very quickly. This is a thing that I've run with a couple of times. I also do enjoy, where was it? Marvin's Blood and Jill's Sandwich. This reveals the survivor's aura for 12 seconds when they unlock a supply crate, so you can figure out where they are, and this does combo with Lethal Pursuer, going up to 14 seconds of aura read, so it's very strong considering survivors are very incentivized to go get those supply cases. You just have to actively be looking at that aura because it's not going to give you a sound notification if they pop off. His two iridescent add-ons, they don't combo well with one another, and they aren't bad, really. Iridescent Umbrella Badge, survivors who are inflicted with the exposed status effect for 60 seconds when they use the vaccine. This isn't bad at all, especially if you can combo it with Jill's Sandwich, because they'll open the case and then run off, and then so you can follow it, and then when they use the vaccine, they'll get exposed for an additional 60 seconds. This isn't bad. The issue is your tentacle strike doesn't cause the exposed insta-down. You have to just punch them, which can be a bit difficult, especially for a killer whose anti-loop is that tentacle, so it's not a super standout thing, but there's something there. For Shattered Stars badge, this one's just kind of goofy. Increase zombies' movement speed by 150% for 60 seconds after a generator is repaired. If you combo that with something like, where was it? No, there's a perk that gives them more, here it is. Increasing zombies' speed by 50% spent just flat, and then you decrease zombie respawn time for by additional 5 seconds. This combo is pretty well to make really fast zombies every once in a while to scare survivors. This still isn't going to make the zombies like catch survivors or do reliable sorts of damage, but it makes the zombies move around a lot more, and it lets you track down survivors a bit easier with that. But you can also combo depleted ink ribbon here with, where is it? This one, Tyrant's Gore, getting additional 75% mutation rate off of zombie killed, but also decreasing zombie respawn time even further by 7.5 seconds. So it makes, this is very zombie focused, but it also makes them keep coming back more and more, so the survivors will have to drop more pallets to destroy them or have to keep avoiding them, while you keep getting mutation rate just off of destroying them. Again, none of these add-ons are bad. Just go ahead and like mess around and see how they combo with one another. But it just kind of depends on what you want to play. Again, personally, this is my personal favorite add-on combo, but you can try. But I also recommend trying the goofy zombie sprint build at least once because it's funny. I'll just be honest. It's goofy. It's a little bit of fun. I'd recommend trying it at least once or twice. But again, just experiment with what you like here because it gives you a lot of options. With his killer power and perks talked about, let's go over a general gameplay loop of the Nemesis, how he will play in a traditional trial, more or less. I think that his little summary that the killer gives when you like hover over his icon here, an unrelenting killer capable of attacking at mid-range with his tentacle while receiving support from zombies roaming the area, is not a bad description of what Nemesis is. At the beginning of the game, you are probably one of the weakest killers in the game. I hate to say it. You are really loud, so you're very easy to loop. Even if you're undetectable, you just have to listen to the footsteps, and it's really hard to mind game survivors with the Nemesis because of how loud your footsteps are. Your tentacle, well, giving you a mid-range option like it said, is hard to aim, it takes a while to reload, and obviously it doesn't break pallets or anything like that. It's just a ranged attack that you have to hit somebody with 3 times to actually down them properly with. So your early game is going to be a bit rough, and you need to be playing as aggressive as is possible to really stack that contaminated and the mutation rate as fast as possible. Personally, I love the add-ons that give you access these two better mutation rates and faster mutation rates, because it allows you to spike into that tier 2 and tier 3 as fast as possible. But again, your early game is not very strong, which is why I love running Lethal Pursuer as a perk for him, because it allows me to immediately know where the survivors are, and I can immediately track them down to begin stacking contamination and mutation rates. Once you get to tier 2, this is where you become a bit of an actual killer, more or less. A killer that can actually play a bit better. Being able to destroy pallets and breakable walls with your tentacle, meaning that you don't have to stop and manually do it yourself, is very, well, you don't have to manually stop yourself and do it, is very, very strong, especially considering if you time it right, you can just keep walking forward while destroying pallets and breakable walls and giving chase. Once you get to tier 3, this is where you become an absolute monster and will begin taking over the game, but of course by this time there's probably only 2 to 3 gens, maybe even 1 gen left, by the time you hit tier 3, so you have to really make sure you are moving and giving that pressure as much as you can, especially because that range upgrade on the tier 3 is nutty. I keep saying you do so much damage in this game, where it doesn't make sense in the context of this game, but like, let me explain it. When I'm saying you're doing so much damage, I mean you are hitting survivors so consistently because of the range, because of how quickly you get it back, and because again you're still able to just bust down pallets and breakable walls and hit people over window seals if they aren't timing their jumps correctly. Again, you are hitting with a thin hitbox, so you have to be ready for that, but overall it gets easier and easier to play Nemesis as the game progresses, and obviously, again, as I stated before in his powers, you have built-in slowdown with your zombies. It does say you're receiving support from your zombies in the little killer overview thing on his icon. That is true, but not in the sense that the zombies are actually doing damage. Of like the 4 games that I've played with Nemesis recently, the zombie didn't hit a guy a single time, but what they gave me was information, because remember, if a zombie is walking with its arms up, it is chasing, quote unquote, it's very slow and probably not going to catch them, but it is going after a survivor, which gives you information on where the survivors are. Well, the zombies also can help force survivors off of healing each other, because they have to move when a zombie walks over to them, or they force them off of generators or away from crates, slowing the game down exponentially. And obviously keep in mind, even if you're in mid-chase, if someone is spraying with a vaccine and that killer instinct proc goes off, take a quick glance into general direction, because that can tell you where survivors may be at. So just give them a quick glance and then continue on with the chase or wherever you're going, or if you don't know where anyone is, start making your way over there and try and figure out where they're going from there. Like I said, you just take over the game by the time you hit tier 3, but you need to get to tier 3 in a timely manner for that to pop off. So, like I said before, the perks that really increase your mutation rate are going to be your best friend here. Even though not perks, your add-ons. You're going to want add-ons that increase your mutation rate. And even though those add-ons kind of brick after you've hit tier 3, they've done their purpose enough to get you to tier 3 quicker, which is where you'll begin completely devouring the game. Most of Nemesis's add-ons have to do with his mutation rate or with his zombies, and overall the perks that make zombies more vigilant are also very good. Very good, like we went over with the add-ons, I'm sure, but the point still stands. You want your zombies to be able to see people, not necessarily catch them. This is why the perk that lets them spawn by the exit gates can be as powerful as it is, because it informs you, oh, they're going to that exit gate, so it removes the 50-50 guesswork. Of course, this is somewhat RNG based, because your zombies could potentially just not do anything the whole game. You could be managing them properly, killing the zombies when they're stacked on top of each other and resetting their general positions over and over and over again, and the zombies could still just not be doing anything because they're just not in good spots on the map and you don't have time to go and reset them. This killer does have a very mild amount of RPG with that, but RPG, RNG, goodness gravy, but it's not game ruining. It just makes the game slightly harder when your zombies can't do it. Again, your big power is your tentacle strike. Your zombies are just a nice bit of flavoring and a bit of utility added on top of that. Now, to finally end the video off with the Nemesis, I'm going to share with you 3 quick tips over the Nemesis. I'm by no means a pro at this game, but here are 3 little tips that will help you play the Nemesis just a little bit better. First one is if you are in chase and the person is right in front of you, you can just hit them with a basic attack. There's no need to risk the miss with a tentacle strike because it's much easier to avoid for the survivor than a basic attack is. And then once they've gained some distance on you off of that basic attack, then you can go back to trying to hitting them with the tentacle. Second tip is if you have a survivor on your shoulder and it's very clear that they're going to wiggle free, go up next to a zombie and put the survivor on your shoulder as close to the zombie as you can possibly get it and just keep following it around. And as soon as the survivor breaks free, what happens a lot of the time, it's not guaranteed, but it happens most of the time, the zombie will immediately hit the survivor back down to the dying state, again, assuming that the survivor is contaminated. If they aren't contaminated, this trick obviously doesn't work, but you can at least get the contaminated on them from the zombie bite. And finally, the third and final little tip for the video here is don't be demoralized early in the game. Again, as I stated earlier, your early game is, frankly, it's dog shit for the Nemesis. You are probably the weakest killer in the game, or at least very close to it, at stage 1, but at stage 2 and stage 3 is when you'll begin taking over the game. So don't be too demoralized if you have a slower start and you feel like you're losing some momentum. Just keep trying, keep giving chase, keep getting that mutation stacking, because once you hit tier 3 and tier 2, you will begin completely devouring the game. You just have to get there, so don't be too demoralized at a bad start. Nemesis is very good at spiking at tier 3 and wrestling games back into his control. But with all that being said, this has been a video over the Nemesis in Dead by Daylight. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for watching to the end of the video. That's super freaking cool of you, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and that's about it. I don't really got a proper outro, just thank you guys for watching, and I hope you all have a good rest of your week. Bye-bye!